So, what if I told you the secret to a $700,000 Etsy shop wasn't some stroke of genius, but actually a series of catastrophic failures? We're about to break down the story of a seller who was literally on the brink of giving up, lost thousands of dollars, and then somehow stumbled upon a repeatable blueprint for absolutely massive success. Yup, you are seeing that right. $726,289. And no, that's not some wild Silicon Valley valuation. That's cold, hard cash, revenue, from a single Etsy store selling personalized jewelry. Just incredible. So that's the real question, isn't it? How does a business that's bleeding money, a business on the verge of total collapse, turn into a powerhouse like this? See, that's the real story here. It's not about getting lucky. It's about a blueprint that was built from the wreckage of failure. And honestly, that's what makes it so powerful.
Okay, so to really understand this incredible turnaround, you first have to understand the playground they were in. And you gotta believe me, Etsy isn't just some small weekend craft fair anymore. It's a global economic engine.
These numbers, they're just mind-blowing. In just 1 year, you've got almost 500 million visitors. They generated over $13 billion in sales. This is not a platform for hobbyists. This is a massive marketplace with nearly 100 million people who are actively looking to buy unique, personalized stuff. The opportunity is just enormous. But, of course, tapping into that opportunity is a minefield. The seller we're following didn't just waltz in and strike gold. No, their journey began with a whole string of painful, really expensive mistakes. Can you just imagine that gut-wrenching feeling? Your first business fails, and all your cash is just sitting in boxes of stuff you can't sell. So you try again, right? But this time, a bad supplier doesn't just torch $10,000, they torch your reputation with angry customers. This isn't just a timeline, you guys. It's a testament to the brutal but absolutely necessary power of just not giving up. And this right here, this is the single most important lesson in this entire story. If you see your early losses as failures, you're going to quit. It's that simple. But if you can reframe them, if you see them as tuition, the price you pay for your real-world business education, well, then you might just stick around long enough to graduate to success. So after paying that pretty hefty tuition, what was the secret sauce? What was the magic elixir that turned everything around? Well, it wasn't a product. It wasn't a marketing trick. It all started with one critical decision that was made before a single thing was ever even listed for sale. Now, this might sound a bit dry, but I promise you, this one choice can make or break your entire business. Where do you legally set up your company? A US-based company saves you a fortune in fees. We're talking slashing them from almost 20% down to around 12%. But it also builds instant trust with the single biggest customer base on the entire platform. And this chart right here is exactly why that US presence is such a game changer. Look at that. Over half of all customers on Etsy are in the United States. By setting up a US company, you're not just some random seller from overseas anymore. To the majority of buyers, you become a local business. And that is a massive competitive advantage. And this is where so many new sellers go so wrong. They treat profit like it's an afterthought, like this happy accident they hope for at the end of the month. But the pros know that profit isn't a lottery. It's a science. It's a formula you engineer from day one. Okay, let's break down the math with a real product. For every $26 t-shirt you sell, after the cost of the shirt itself and those low US Etsy fees, you pocket over $11. That's a 42% profit margin. Think about that for a second. You're making a super healthy profit on a competitive item, and you haven't even had to touch a t-shirt or print a shipping label. All right, so your shop is now a finely tuned profit machine. But what do you feed it? What do you actually sell? This, my friends, is the secret weapon that separates the pros from the amateurs. It's called print on demand. It is the ultimate low-risk, high-reward model. You can create and list hundreds of designs without spending a single penny on inventory. It completely eliminates the exact mistake that killed our seller's first business. This isn't about just throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. It's a systematic process. First, you basically become a student of success. You analyze what's already selling like crazy. Then you become a detective, using keyword research to figure out what customers really want. And finally, you become a strategist. You find the gap in the market, the bad photos, the slow shipping, the lazy descriptions, and you do it better. So now you have the profitable structure and you have a validated product. Now it's time to master the game itself. You have to learn to speak the language of the Etsy algorithm.
You can think of the Etsy algorithm as this picky but very predictable customer. It knows exactly what it wants to see: relevant keywords, listings that turn clicks into sales, a history of happy customers, and fresh new products. If you give the algorithm what it wants, it will reward you with a flood of traffic. It's that simple.
Okay, now here's the big paradox of Etsy success. To make a lot of money in the long run, you first have to be willing to make no money. I know, it sounds crazy, but your initial goal isn't profit, it's proof. You need those first few sales, even if you just break even, to prove to the algorithm that your product is a winner. And this is your arsenal for that initial attack. You start with a little surgical strike of low-budget Etsy ads just to gather some intel. Then you can launch a blitz of promotions to create a buying frenzy. And all the while, you're running this stealth campaign of automated emails to turn one-time buyers into loyal, repeat customers. Once you have this whole engine humming, a profitable product, an optimized listing, and a marketing push that's generating sales, you're no longer just surviving on the platform. You are ready to scale. And this is the moment you graduate. You go from being just an Etsy seller to being an Etsy entrepreneur. You're not just selling products anymore, you're building systems. And that proven, repeatable system is what separates the six-figure earners from the hobbyists. That system is the key to real scale. So there it is, the blueprint. It's not about being the most creative artist. It's about being the most strategic, the most resilient, and the most obsessed with your numbers. You know, the best products, they either solve a problem or they create pure joy. So the only question left is, what problem will you solve, what joy will you create, and just how big are you willing to dream?